Hey guys, it's Megan, and welcome to the How I Healed It podcast. Today, I get to connect with the amazing legend, Bailey O'Brien. I am so excited to talk with her today. I've been looking forward to this interview so much. I saw Bailey speak for the first time on The Truth About Cancer and was just blown away by her incredible healing story of healing stage 3, which later progressed to stage 4. Melanoma. She just has an incredible story of healing naturally after conventional treatments came to an end. She's 13 years cancer free and just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things health and healing and healing the body naturally. She's just one of the most beautiful people inside and out, which you're about to witness. And I'm so excited to learn from you today, Bailey, and all that you have to share. Thanks so much for being on.
Oh, my goodness, Megan. I have a lot to live up to after that introduction.
Not at all. It's just who you are.
Those being gracious.
Well,
I'm so happy to be here with you.
thank you. Thanks so much for being here. So, I would just love to hear a little bit more about your story and your journey that you had and what led you to ending up on the Gerson therapy, which I'm excited to actually pick your brain about that as well. So, yeah, tell me, what's your story?
Oh, my story. Well, it could be long or short. But I did not really have the healthiest lifestyle growing up, and stress was a big part of that. I did not know how to handle stress. I think that was um, the major thing that led to my cancer development at 17 in my first semester of college. I also was not, I actually ended up studying nutrition in college in
Oh, wow.
starting my second year there. But in the first year, in the first semester, food was a source of comfort for me. And I was like binging on food and not really the healthiest foods. I didn't eat fast food or drink soda, but
Oh,
I guess,
that's better than most college students, I would argue.
yeah, well, I mean, I still had like French fries and pizza and ice cream and all.
Right. Yes. As did we all in college.
Not like McDonald's. I mean, I guess it's not that far. Well, yeah, it's pretty similar, but um, yeah. So I found a mole in my right temple in the first semester around Thanksgiving, around this time of year,
Mhm.
and had a biopsy and found out when I went home for Christmas break that um it looked like melanoma. It wasn't like 100%, how it usually looks, but we were going to treat it as if it were. Um so I had surgery and it had spread to a lymph node in front of my ear, and that meant it was stage 3.
Mhm.
And I had after the surgery, I had interferon treatments, which are an old form of immunotherapy that's not really used very much today anymore because
Oh,
there are different,
interesting.
immunotherapies available now. And my oncologist thought I was going to be fine, that it wouldn't recur because I was young and athletic and otherwise very healthy. And so I just had follow-up scans every 6 months. And I had, well, yeah, so stress, it kind of hit the peak when I started college. It was like
Yeah.
I felt like really like a fish out of water.
Mm.
I was away from home about 3.5 hours. I was on the swim and dive team at my college, and socially, socially, athletically, academically, I felt like totally out of my comfort zone. Um, and then I had another stressful event a couple of years later, a breakup, and a couple of months after that, found out I had, the cancer had recurred. So I had surgery again to remove the tumor. Another tumor grew, and the surgeon missed the
Was it
first
in
tumor.
the same spot? Because I think a lot of times when you hear, "Oh, the cancer occurred," it all like in a lot of people's mind who haven't dealt with cancer, it comes back in the same spot. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, it was right around, it was not far from the
Okay.
original, from here to here.
Got it. Okay.
So I had surgery and then recovered for about 6 weeks and then had 1 month of radiation treatments. And then 2 weeks after I finished radiation, felt another lump under my chin. And that was more melanoma. Had a scan and it was pretty spread out in my body, in my neck, my lung, and my spine.
Wow.
And that was when I started to feel really discouraged about my treatment and that I had done everything that I was told to do treatment wise by my doctors. And it still, um, was a problem, and
Yeah.
a bigger problem than it was originally. So my mom and her friend had started researching alternative medicine, and I had started doing integrative medicine. I took
Mm.
supplements and changed my diet a bit to help prevent a recurrence.
Oh, interesting. So that was after the first round of interferon, you kind of started dabbling in natural things to kind of support your body. Is that right?
It was after the second diagnosis, after the surgery, so, like, around the time that I did
Got it.
radiation
Okay.
and before the 3rd diagnosis, before it became stage 4. But I started to make changes. I started to, actually, the day after I got my stage 4 diagnosis, this motivational speaker came to my school named John Gordon, and he talked about, like, working hard and staying positive and using what you're going through to, inspire others. And he actually called me. My coach asked him if he would speak to me, and he did. And we were actually in Tulsa at the Cancer Treatment Center of America, trying to, get more opinions and see what else was available for me treatment wise. And he said, I don't know why, but I believe you're going to make it.
Mm.
And, faith wise, he had faith and asked me what I believed about God. I said, I don't really know. I never really gave it much thought.
Mm.
And he said, just pray, God, if you're there, please give me a miracle, and prayed over and over. And so I started doing
Wow.
that. That was really when I started to go a little deeper in faith, because I grew up going to church, but it wasn't like part of my daily life,
Right.
or how I, thought about things and like myself and the world and God.
Yeah.
Um, so, my mindset started to shift. I started to, you believe I could get better. So that was like really hopeful and empowering, and believing that there were things that I could do myself. Um, and that was around the time that the Gerson therapy came into
Wow.
view. Yeah, and my mom had found out about it, how successful it had been in melanoma treatment. And uh Coley's toxins was another melanoma treat. Well, not specific to melanoma, but it had really good results in melanoma historically. So, um, Gerson it was like 39% 5-year survival rate in the stage of melanoma that I had, which was widespread. Um,
Because
and
stage three cancer in general is when it is found in the lymph, in like general, obviously very generalized. And then stage four is when it's spread to other organs and it's more all over the place. Is that correct?
that's my general understanding. It depends on the type of cancer, the staging. It can be like distance wise, like how far it is from the original site of the cancer. But yeah, the lymph nodes and other organ involvement, I think is common for staging.
Yeah, that's interesting. I I do not have cancer. I have endometriosis and they stage it similar to cancer, which I thought was really interesting. I think maybe part
Uh,
of the reason is because it is an abnormal cell growth, but it just
mhm.
behaves a little differently. Whereas cancer causes cell death, endometriosis, it it invades and then it bleeds and it causes scarring. But once you get to the stage 4 diagnosis, which is what I was diagnosed with, it's all over all your internal organs and
Wow.
it just is kind of taking over. So it is interesting the staging that.
That is very interesting. I didn't know endometriosis could spread like that.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of Dr. John Beard. His treatment was enzyme therapy,
Yeah.
primarily for cancer, because, oh yeah, the trophoblast theory, how cancer behaves like a trophoblast, which is like when a woman has a baby developing. It's like, the blood vessels are growing, and it's like uncontrollably growing. But then when the baby starts producing pancreatic enzymes is when the trophoblast stops growing. And so,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. And this is why I've gotten so into, well, as in my journey, in my story, whenever all the medical stuff stopped working, nothing has worked.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden you are in that situation and where you're like, whereas cancer is scary because it's so life threatening from your quality of life, because you can't live, you're just disease, life is ruled by disease. And so when you come to the end with anything that anyone is trying to heal naturally, oftentimes I've found that the reason that people get to the point of what are my other options? Can I heal with food? Can I heal naturally? It's because they tried all the things, all the conventional things
Yeah.
that were
Yeah.
available to them, and now they don't work they didn't work for that person. So then you kind of
Mhm.
become your own doctor and have to figure out how to heal yourself, which is what you did, which is so beautiful and so fascinating with the support of your mom, and it sounds like her friend as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it took a village to save me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and yeah, I mean, it was totally God's grace that I had these people in my life to who did the research. I just like it was not I was not, or I didn't see myself as capable or even aware or mindful, believing that that was an option for me.
Wow. Yeah.
It was all like a gift to me that
Wow.
yeah. So it's really
Really
a gift.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So your mom's friend told her about Gerson therapy. You went through radiation, and now you're kind of, are is at this point, are you at the end of like that didn't work, or where were you at that point? And then what was the springboard into Gerson?
Yeah, so my mom and her friend were researching. They knew I had the diagnosis before I did, like by a couple days, I think. Um, but yeah, I had finished radiation, was doing integrative things, and then um, I remember one of my oncologists saying, you're gonna make it to my retirement party.
Mm.
Um,
Wow, that's awesome. That they were that you are. He said you are
yeah,
gonna make it. That's great that they
yeah,
were kind and
yeah.
encouraging.
It was. It was. She ended up dropping me as a patient though, so it wasn't,
Oh,
I that was hurtful.
yeah.
And then, I don't know, she had talked to my mom, or her assistant had talked to my mom and said, like, when Bailey's ready to follow her protocol, then you can come back and,
Right.
work. So I don't, I wasn't there for the conversation, but I, from my mom's understanding, that's what happened. Um,
You know you're on the right path when your doctor drops you, unfortunately.
yeah, there are doctors like that. There
Yeah,
are really amazing doctors
there
though.
are.
Like I had one who was willing to follow me even though I wanted to go to Mexico, and he said he didn't recommend going.
Wow.
And he would be willing to order my scans. And
Wow,
um
that's awesome.
yeah, so there was a hospital in Mexico that offered Gerson and Coley's toxins. Um and yeah, it was a leap of faith, like, okay, I uh, essentially have no options medically, conventionally. There was one chemo pill that my oncologist wanted me to try, that she wanted me to do that in combination with a B vitamin supplement that she found in her lab killed melanoma cells on its own.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's right. So I started taking that supplement, and it took a couple weeks of research for me to make a decision. And I didn't want to let the cancer continue growing uncontrolled. So I did one round of the chemo pills. Um, And the cancer, and I started another supplement that my mom's friend had found had miraculous results in
Mm,
some cases. So I did those three, and and praying, God, if you're there, give me a miracle. My mindset, embracing social support. A lot of other people were praying for me. And I started to see shrinkage of the
wow.
cancer. It was, there was one spot I could see under my chin.
Wow.
Yeah, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I still went to Mexico for the treatments. And
So
that
Mexico was the Gerson treatments and the
mhm,
Coley's therapy.
exactly, yeah. And I did some Laetrile, um and kind of high dose vitamin C. It probably wasn't that high.
Is Laetrile the B17?
Hmm.
Laetril's B17, which is a compound naturally found in apricot seeds and apple seeds. When I learned about that, I started eating I would crack open the hard shell of the apricot seed and eat those because I'm like, what the heck? This whole time we're told those are poison, but it's actually
Yeah,
healing, you know?
yeah. And I started eating apple seeds like not long after that,
Yeah.
because that's what we're taught to like, um avoid the seeds, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway,
That was
I
one fact that I learned on The Truth About Cancer. There was a doctor who talked specifically about Laetrile and how the arsenic, it does not interact with anything in our body except for cancer cells. It goes into the cancer cell and it kills the cancer cell, which I just think is so phenomenal how God created healing in the plants, you know? So that's really cool. And then do you know what the B vitamin is that your doctor had you on in conjunction with the chemo? Was that
Yeah,
was it a B17 or was it some other B?
it was a different bee. Oh gosh. I don't remember which one. I mean, I don't know the number of the bee. It's called PABA, PABA, or para aminobenzoic acid,
Oh,
which
interesting.
you can get in supplement form. So that's how I took it. Like
Yeah.
five, I think it was five, or it was either 500 or 1,000 milligrams twice per day.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I found later on in my research that it has antiviral properties, which I found very
Oh,
interesting,
that's
because they're, um, you know, theory about cancer being a virus, um, or being related to a virus. So,
yeah. Oh,
and
fascinating.
yeah, and even more interesting, I used to get plantar warts on my feet in like maybe the end of high school and earlier in college. And that was after I started springboard diving. My feet were always wet.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But also probably my immune system was not very strong and couldn't fight off whatever, the fungus that was, I was exposed to. But then after starting the Gerson therapy and doing all this holistic alternative cancer stuff, I stopped getting them. They went away.
Wow. Wow.
So
Side effects of natural healing are a lot more
yeah.
to be desired than side effects of some of
Uh-huh.
the pharmaceuticals, huh?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So you got to the Gerson clinic, and then would you be able to share a little bit about what Gerson is, like the therapy and what it looked like for you at the beginning, like a day in the life of the food and the juicing, and just maybe like an overview of what the Gerson therapy is? And I know there's a few different renditions of Gerson. So I'm
Yeah.
curious what yours was that you did and then your take on it. And maybe at some point we could dive into the differences between the different Gerson. I'm curious about that.
Okay. Yeah. Gerson has, um, you know, pretty good, a lot of history actually. He wrote a lot of, like a lot of, different articles and papers, and one of them is over 600 pages long on
Mm.
his tuberculosis. Oh yeah, I sent you something else. I sent you other papers, but um he treated first his own migraines with diet, and then other people with migraines, and then tuberculosis, and then somebody begged him for the information for their cancer, and he said, this isn't going to cure your cancer, but it did.
Wow.
And then he ended up treating a lot of people with cancer.
Wow. Okay, so he did it for his migraines and tuberculosis, and then people just were like, "No, if it's working, let's give it a shot." I guess
Yeah.
same story where it's you're at the end of your rope. Please let me just try
Mhm.
this, and wow, and it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like diet, it's primarily diet and detox. Gerson believed that cancer was a result of toxicity and deficiency of nutrients. So there's a lot of juicing to help replenish nutrients and detoxing with coffee enemas. And then there's like the regular meals as well. It's not just juicing, which a lot of people think. There's a
Yeah.
lot of food.
Yeah.
Like you won't go hungry on it. It's great. I mean, it I think it tastes good. I don't think I mean, it's very restrictive. You can't have like processed foods on it and a lot of meat and salt. Um, but I mean, there's all the fruits and vegetables practically that you could want. And I mean, you can, so there's, um, yeah, it's like it's complicated, like the history of it, and you said maybe later we could talk about the different versions of it. But um yeah, the more I've learned, the more it's like a little bit hard for me to keep it succinct and clear. But
Totally.
um yeah, you wanna get a lot of potassium in the body. Like there's a sodium potassium balance in all of our cells that gets out of whack with disease and cancer. So the fruits and vegetables help replete the potassium and
Mm.
get sodium out of the cells. Um,
And it is a
so
no salt diet. Is that correct?
yeah, I mean, basically, there is some salt in fruits and vegetables naturally, but there's no added salt.
No added salt. And then there is an added potassium supplement that is made and put into the juices.
Hmm. Yeah, I did that at the time. I don't depending on the practitioner, you may or may not a person may or may not do that now, but
Okay.
that's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah, every juice had potassium and salt in it.
Nice.
I mean, salt, sorry, not to confuse anyone. Potassium is a salt as well as like sodium chloride salt,
Right.
but it's a healthier salt.
Right.
So,
That our cells use
um,
to function in a healthy way and not
mhm,
bogged down.
yeah. So, I had like a day in my life on Gerson when I was healing. Then, started with a coffee enema for detox in the morning, first thing, and then I would have breakfast, which consisted of oatmeal and some fruit, like steamed or dried fruit or both, and juice, like an orange juice. And then after that, like half an hour later, started the rest of the juices for the rest of the day. It was 13 juices total.
So many
Uh,
juices.
a lot of
It
juices.
sounds so abundant and lovely until you start doing it. Because I leaned into Gerson for a bit there, and then I swear by the eighth or ninth juice, I'd be like, I don't want any more. I don't want
Yeah.
another juice.
I think it depends also like the kind of juice you're drinking and how it tastes.
Yes,
You know,
totally.
how full you are.
Yeah.
What your lifestyle is like, what your schedule is like. It's like, because you have to think
Totally.
about it consciously. Like every hour I had a juice from like 9 to 7 every day.
A lot of juice.
A lot. Um, and then lunch and dinner both had Hippocrates soup, which is made with some root vegetables like celery root, parsnips, leeks, and potatoes and onions. Um, and then, other vegetables if you wanted to, but I'd never, I just did the minimum because it was so much work to begin with.
Totally.
Uh,
Absolutely.
it took a few hours every day to prep like all the food and the coffee and juices.
Yeah. I would say it can be a full-time job, especially if you're juicing. I know on some versions of the Gerson therapy, people are they say to do it fresh on the hour, but that doesn't work for everybody. So, because
Most
it's a
people.
lot of time juicing. That would be your whole day pretty much juicing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you would, spend your whole life. I don't even know, you know, when you're on the therapy, especially if you literally make the juice every hour, that takes a lot of energy, and healing itself takes a lot of energy.
Yeah,
Just like
totally.
how we
So
heal.
you would prep all your juices in the morning, or I think I remember on one of your interviews you saying that your friends would come initially. You had some friends call your juicing angels, I think you called them.
Yeah. My mom found people, or she reached out to someone in my town, my hometown, to see if they could find people to help us because I was tired from the Coley's toxins, which took a lot out of me physically and mentally and emotionally. Um, that yeah, there were like between 1 and 3 people every morning, every weekday morning. My parents were there on the weekends to help, and they just, helped so much.
Wow, that's such a
Mhm.
blessing. How amazing.
I
Those
couldn't
they are your juicing angels. That's absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal. It sounds like a primarily plant-based diet, but then also with the no salt. What was that like for you as like a young 20-year-old woman or late teens? What was
Yeah,
that
it's
like
fun.
for you transitioning to that? Like flavor-wise, or how was that for you?
I mean, I loved the oatmeal was good. I liked the oatmeal. The soup was actually pretty good. I enjoyed the lunch and dinner. I think the hardest part for me was the juices because of like adding the potassium. Um, and the recipe was like pretty strong. Or actually, I think I made it as intense as you could. Like I just believed that less apples was better and like more leafy greens was better. So
Mm,
it was like a pretty strong green juice that I drank.
yeah.
Um, and even with the carrot apple juices, sometimes the carrots were kind of bitter or not very
Mm.
sweet. And then you add the potassium, and I added Lugol solution, which is iodine, which tastes
Oh,
nasty.
yeah.
So that was hard.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that
I
would be
just was
not
like,
yummy. Because the
yeah,
potassium kind of has a bitter taste to it, and iodine is quite metallic tasting.
yeah, it tastes like gnarly chemicals.
Yeah, it does.
But I mean, I knew I wanted to live, and that was the most important thing. So I just chugged the juices and just focused on healing and getting through. And
Hmm,
I had a couple of friends who I was able to talk to like pretty much all day on,
awesome.
the old Facebook message
Yeah.
platform
Yes.
before there was Messenger. and
Totally.
and just try to keep humor in the day, and that
Love it.
was I guess the flavoring for my
Yeah.
life was
Oh, I love
laughter.
that. Oh, I love that so much. And I love what an emphasis you put on the like the emotional and spiritual aspect, because I think when, at least for me and what I've seen for quite a few others, is when you get into it, you start getting into the physical things first, where it's just like, okay, I need to change my food. Like that becomes a really logical thing for people. Like what I'm putting in my mouth, in my body, it matters. Like that's pretty logical. I think one of the harder things for people to get at is the emotional, spiritual element. And the more I've been down my healing journey, the more I just wonder and am curious if that's the majority of, like what
Mhm.
you said, stress was a huge component. And we know that. I mean, there's scientific studies on stress being bad for the body, but I'm just curious of the reality of the component of the emotional spiritual aspect of things, and what role that does really play in the manifestation of disease in our bodies.
Mm.
So I love
Yeah.
that you say laughter was part of your medicine and keeping things like joy filled.
As much as possible. I always
Yeah.
was grateful for an opportunity to laugh.
Yeah, because you have to process the hard stuff too, especially when you're going through stage 4 cancer. I mean, there's
Mhm.
going to be emotions that come up.
Yeah. And I actually didn't really see that as part of my healing.
Oh, wow.
I was kind of like closed off to it, really, like from my own perspective, but
Yeah.
because when I went to the Cancer Treatment Center of America, there was a therapist there I saw, and I was like, this is not doing anything for me. And I think my doctor in Mexico was even kind of talking a little bit about like the emotions and spirit, and I was like, no, not
Yeah.
interested. That's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it really was. I just didn't realize it. And
Yeah.
then like later on, um, over the years it's become more of a part of my life, much bigger part
Mm.
of my life. And in my research, like working as a cancer coach, Dr. Kelly Turner's research on radical remission survivors, like people who had 25% chance of living or less, like the majority of the factors have nothing to do with your, physical routine. And that
Wow.
was very surprising to me. Like 7 out of 9 of the top factors had to do with your
Wow.
mind and spirit and like
Wow.
embracing support from your community. So,
Wow. So if you're watching and you're starting out your healing journey, just note that we're putting emphasis on get a good counselor, get some emotional healing or therapy or whatever works for you. But I think working through that and pulling joy into your life, pulling joy and laughter. I remember listening to this story of this preacher and his wife had stage 4 liver cancer, and her medicine every day was she'd put on funny movies and she would just laugh. And it was just, we're going to laugh and we're just going to speak life, and she healed.
wow.
So I think that those stories are fascinating, and I love the book Radical Remission. If you haven't read it, it's a phenomenal book on the factors that it's kind of a study, right, of all of the people and who were basically going to die, but then they had radical remission where all of a sudden they don't know why. The doctors cannot explain why are you
Mhm.
healed. And what Bailey's saying is 7 out of the 10 factors were emotional and
Yeah.
spiritual.
Yeah. And just like mindset, like having strong reasons to live. But
Yeah.
yeah, and she wrote, so it was Dr. Kelly Turner's dissertation. You
Mm.
know, she found one person who healed from cancer, like stage 4 cancer. And then she found that she researched like for her first book over 1,000 cases of people who healed that
Wow.
she found in the medical literature. And then for her second book, Radical Hope, there was like another at least 500 survivors that she researched, and she found it's common in other diseases too, like in quote unquote incurable, like ALS and Alzheimer's and MS. And so it's like it's awesome because the factors don't just apply to cancer, they can apply to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that's fascinating is our body and our mind and our soul are all connected regardless of the disease that someone is facing. They're all the same things that need to happen where okay, let's address food and let's clean up the diet. Let's get toxins and processed foods out. Let's shift emotions. What's going on in your life? Let's address those things. And that's really, yeah, it's really fascinating regardless of what disease there's so many. I can't imagine. I don't even know the number. Uncurable diseases,
Yeah.
autoimmune issues. And I think when it
Yeah.
gets right down to it, a lot of it is the root cause and a lot of these things. Can we double click really quick on Lugol's iodine? I'm curious because when I've heard a lot of people talk on different cancers or hormonal issues or different diseases, iodine comes into the picture.
Mhm.
I know I'm springing this on you, but do you have any information that you can share a little bit? And I'm curious how much iodine the Gerson therapy suggests people take whenever they're healing from a big disease.
I can tell you how much I took initially was 8 drops. I think it was half strength, so 2.5% concentration. And then I went down to like 6 drops and then like 3 drops in my juices every day. And only in the carrot apple juice because I guess there was some interaction in the green juices with maybe one of the nutrients.
Oh, interesting.
I don't actually know what that was, but um and it's not meant to be long term because
Mm.
I believe it can mess up your thyroid,
Mm.
especially like if you're like it shouldn't be supplemented forever, or at least not at that high of a dose.
Yeah.
Like we do need iodine in our cells. Um, and I believe for Gerson, it was about for the mitochondria of the cells for producing the energy required for the cells. And also like so Gerson believed iodine was deficient in cancerous diseased cells, and so that was to replete that and help the cells function
Mm.
with enough energy that they need.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Iodine's a topic I'd love to understand more and dive deeper into because I've noticed it's just been highlighted to me recently. So thank you for
Mm.
sharing about that. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, sure. Wish I knew more, but it
Oh
was
no.
interesting.
That's great. So what's different that you've learned? So you were doing Hippocrates soup, you were doing the oatmeal. Were you doing any raw veggies? Were you doing any meat at that time?
Cottage cheese or pot cheese is part of Gerson or some form of cultured dairy, which I did in Mexico because they gave it to me. When I went home, I didn't have any of that because sodium is also restricted,
Mm.
and all the cottage cheese you find in the stores has a ton of sodium. So that was primarily why I avoided it. I also was kind of like, I don't believe that dairy is probably great for me. So that was another reason I avoided it,
Totally.
as well as other animal protein like chicken or fish
Mm.
that was given to me in Mexico, like
Okay.
once or twice a week. I was told I could have it once or twice a week. Um, but since learning more about Gerson, um, and doing kind of like a health reset more currently in the last year or
Yeah.
so, I now have yogurt every
Mm.
day
Okay.
and egg yolks, which Gerson believe were best raw. So I kind of do like a soft boiled
Oh,
version.
nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder
Yeah.
what the raw reasons are.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe enzymes or something, or
Yeah.
the way that heat denatures proteins and changes them.
Right.
But and this is like, there this is based off of one of the versions of the Gerson therapy in the tuberculosis paper,
Oh,
which
okay.
actually was used to treat people with cancer that he
Right.
documented in his book, A Cancer Therapy, Results of 50 Cases. But
Mm.
I don't think it's specified in that book which people follow the tuberculosis diet
Right.
versus the later version of the cancer diet.
Right.
Um, but that's why my practitioner Gar Hildenbrand was so helpful and instrumental in helping to guide me on that, and other
Totally.
people I've worked with. So there are lots of different phases of the diet, and now there's the intervention diets that
Mm.
Gerson had to help people who were maybe plateaued in their results or their progress, and the intervention diets which further restricted protein help people break the plateau and
Oh,
heal.
fascinating.
Yeah, and or prevent recurrence of the cancer.
And when you say protein, is there a specific category of foods that you're referring to?
Well, I can tell you that there are two different versions of the or phases of the intervention diets. One of them is just raw foods. So yeah, there's no animal proteins in on that. Um, I don't know. I have to like double check this or dive deeper into this, but I think brewer's yeast might be restricted on that version, which is like a um, kind of a supplement on the basic diet of the version of the Gerson
Okay.
therapy.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't do the yogurt or egg yolks or brewer's yeast on the intervention diets.
I do wonder with brewer's yeast is something I've kind of looked into a bit. And I know originally brewer's yeast was just it's a yeast and it has a yummy flavoring to it. But nowadays they will fortify brewer's yeast with just Cinnacobalamin vitamin Bs, which doesn't work for I think it's like 40 or 50% of the population because
Mhm.
it's a synthetic B vitamin, which if you have any gene mutation, it basically stops the detox pathway. I don't know why but I just found it fascinating because I love brewer's yeast and you hear all the good things about it. It has all the B vitamins in it. If you're vegan, make sure you're
Yeah.
having brewer's yeast and then you do a deep dive and it's like, this has synthetic vitamins in it that are shutting down my detox pathways.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
interesting. So fully raw is one of the intervention
Mhm.
diets of Gerson.
Yes. And then there's the apple potato days, which are you mostly just eat apples and potatoes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And there is some citrus fruits. You could have like a citrus fruit salad. So
Okay.
I just juiced the citrus instead of like,
Oh, yum. Yeah.
well, actually maybe well, depends on the day. I might
Right.
the citrus or eat it, but I don't really like eating raw lemons like I used to as a
Yeah,
kid.
totally.
But you could.
Not the same
And then
effect.
yeah, I think you could Gerson allowed some honey on the citrus fruits. But yeah, you juice all the juice those days are just Granny Smith apples. And then he did allow butter, like some butter with the apples and potatoes. And you could prepare there's like he had them measured out in grams. So I think it was like 1,600 grams of apples for juices maybe, and then 1,000 grams for eating or
Mm.
vice versa. And then um like 1,000 grams of potatoes, and then like maybe 50 grams of butter, which is a lot of
Yeah, that's
butter.
a lot of butter.
Yeah, which I don't eat all of that.
Yeah.
And I did tailor it to like my weight. Like I ended up doing like 2/3 of the amounts of each thing.
Yeah.
Or I'm actually still doing like rotations of the intervention diets currently. Like I'll
Yeah.
be setting it up again next week, I think it is.
Oh, that's
But
awesome. That's really cool. I hadn't heard of the intervention diets aspect of the Gerson, so that's really fascinating.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's very interesting for me.
And I
And it's
love
so
that. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go.
Oh, I love that how you and everybody has to do this is you cater something to what your body needs and you listen
Mhm.
to that and there's so many ways to heal the body, which is so
Mhm.
amazing. And
Yeah.
Gerson just has a wealth of resources and information, like dietary information. It's just so fascinating.
Yeah. And similar to Kelly Turner's research, it's helped with like all sorts of different ailments, like heart
Yeah.
disease, not just cancer and
Yeah.
tuberculosis and migraines.
Yeah.
That's very encouraging, like you said.
Yeah, so amazing. That's so cool. I love it. Can we talk about coffee enemas? I know you mentioned coffee enemas,
Yeah.
and for those who are listening who might be, jumping into their healing journey for the first time, these are things you're going to start hearing about. Coffee enemas. It's on the list. So what's a coffee enema and why do we do it?
Great questions, Megan. So, I mean, a coffee enema starts with a special blend of coffee, a very light blonde roast. So the coffee beans are lightly roasted or toasted. It does not look or smell like the typical coffee that you drink, but it's actually higher in caffeine. It's not
Oh,
roasted
interesting.
away. Yeah. And there are naturally occurring chemical components that help with detoxifying the body. It stimulates your liver or your bile duct to dilate and open up and release bile salts from the bile duct, which is on the liver, which bind to toxins. And so you're basically like boiling the coffee, preparing it and heating it up, but not so hot. You don't want it boiling. You don't want the whole thing boiling for the application.
Yeah. You need it to
That
cool
would be
down. You boil it first
horrible.
and then you let it sit.
You would destroy your body.
Yes.
um, but yeah, it goes in rectally, and a typical coffee enema is about a quart. I've done like between 24 to 28 ounces. Typically, I have done a quart, but I just like during cancer, I did like about 28 ounces. That was just what seemed to fit for me.
Did you do one a day when you were in the throes of cancer or more?
Three a
3.
day.
3 a day.
Yeah, some people do 5 on Gerson.
Yeah.
It really depends on the person's needs and how much pain they're in, how many toxins are in their body, how they're feeling. For
Right.
some people, 5 is too many and they feel worse doing that. Some people can't even do coffee enema. Maybe they're super sensitive to the caffeine in it,
Mm.
or you have to do like less coffee, or um maybe do smaller amounts multiple times through in order to get the whole dose. Um, but yeah, you hold the liquid in your intestines. You're supposed to lie down on the right side because the liver is on the right side. Um, and then after about 12 to 15 minutes, you go to the bathroom and the toxins should be out, your intestines should be cleared out. And also, I think I don't remember if it's the caffeine, but it activates peristalsis, which is like the muscles in the intestines contract, and then it pushes like the stuff out of your body so you can excrete it. And so it helps remove the toxic breakdown products of the cancer cells, and the toxins that are leaving the body. And you feel typically more relaxed and refreshed. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps the person to rest and digest. So, it can help, when you remove the toxins, it can help clear your mind, give you a better mood, and give you energy. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Fascinating.
it became my favorite part of the day on Gerson. And I struggled a lot physically with it for a while. My stomach just like did not want it to go in or stay in. And
Yeah.
then this is actually kind of a funny part of my faith journey. It's that I had been doing 3 coffee enemas per day for 3 months, and I was still really struggling with it. And I was
Yeah.
like, God, help me.
Yeah.
And literally in that instant, I had no problem with it
Wow.
for the rest of the time.
Were you
Like,
just having a hard time holding it? Because I know for that will be the case for me. I've been doing coffee enemas for a while, but I've never been able to hold one for 12 minutes.
oh, yeah, I mean, it was a struggle. I mean, the first few times it was like 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. Um, it was a struggle to get to 12 and 15. But yeah, so you're still having trouble with it?
Yeah, yeah. I love doing coffee enemas, and I was telling Bailey before we got on the call. I did one this morning because I thought I had this persistent cold for these last 2 weeks, but I've really been ramping up my juicing and my healing protocol that I'm on right now. And my husband suggested it a couple days, like maybe 2 days ago, that maybe it was detox response, not a cold. And so I did a coffee enema the next day. I felt better. Did another one, felt better. So this morning I did another one, and I was just like, I feel amazing. But I still cannot hold them for 12 minutes. I
Mm,
I I have not been able to. So I laying on my side, I just, you get that urgency,
yeah.
and you gotta go when you gotta go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can only fight so much.
You can, exactly.
Um, I mean, I wonder if you just have so many like if your body needs it so much that uh it's overwhelmed with toxins, maybe a smaller amount of coffee,
Oh, yeah,
can,
that's true.
like, not less volume of fluid, but less coffee itself.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. So to maybe, like, lessen that
peristalsis.
peristalsis, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so to lessen that. Okay, that's fascinating, and I think this will be helpful. This is information I've wanted. I know there's people out there who are doing coffee enemas, or if they're about to start into their coffee enemas, they might experience this. So I
Mhm.
love that we get to touch on this because this is the way that I've learned is through other people's stories and other people's
Mhm.
experiences. So that's why I'm like, let's talk about coffee enemas. Let's talk about the fact that I can't hold one for 12 minutes. Like, let's go there because it's super helpful for those who are embarking on their journey. And yeah, thank you. Those are really good tips.
I think also, I've heard other things. I think Tudka is a supplement that some people, claim you have to do with a coffee enema. Obviously, I mean, I never did that, but and then maybe adding potassium salt to the enema itself.
Oh, yes,
Uh,
I've heard that.
yeah, I never did that myself, but I've heard
Okay.
those things too.
I'm going to start experimenting. I'll try those things. And I'm sure
Yeah.
it'll come up on another podcast soon.
And you'll be the enema expert, the coffee
Yeah,
enema
exactly.
expert.
Having trouble with your coffee enema? Come to Megan. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, well, I know we don't have a ton more time. I'm gonna let you pick what topic we talk on next. So, the last few questions that I had were we could dive into Coley's toxins, which I think is a fascinating component of your healing journey. So that might be fun to talk on. Or if you wanted to talk about any other healing modalities, I don't know if there's other non-Gerson things that you incorporate into your healing journey that you would like to share on. Um, so go for it.
Okay.
Which direction do you wanna go?
Well, so I'll just do like a something connected to the coffee enemas that I read recently. So there are a couple newer articles on coffee enemas, one by Linda Isaacs, who has continued Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez's protocol. They actually were in practice together, doing the proteolytic enzyme therapy combined with an individualized diet and supplement and I think, was it protomorphogen
Oh,
protocol. It's
okay.
like where you take glandular supplements. So
Oh,
um it could be, I guess, kidney or liver supplements, like different organs in the body. Um and then yeah, they did the coffee enemas as well. They're like so four main components of the therapy. But yeah, I guess she wrote an article recently on coffee enemas, and Gar Hildenbrand, my practitioner, um, the epidemiologist I worked with, he wrote an article that was published in the Townsend letter, I think it's called,
oh, yeah.
this summer. Um, and he talked about um, something called the danger model or danger theory about the immune system. And this originated with Dr. Polly Matzinger, who is a brilliant scientist. She headed or heads the Ghost Lab at NIH. And so her theory of the immune system um, first came about in the early 90s, I believe, like around 1995 is when she started publishing on it. Um, so I believe majority of what doctors and medical students are taught about the immune system is that the immune system will respond to things that look um, foreign to the body,
Mm,
but um, that doesn't explain like why a fetus or a baby in a woman's body um, is not rejected because you
right.
have like the DNA from the male sperm, which is from outside the woman's body, um, that the body does not reject. So, um, anyway, the new theory, or the danger theory, suggests that um, something that looks dangerous to the body is what the immune system will respond to and react to.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, so something like, because there are different bacteria in the body that can come from outside, but only those that are dangerous are treated by the immune system. So, anyhow, with the coffee enemas, that's so with the Gerson therapy, you're not damaging any cancer cells. So cancer cells go undetected by the body, which is why it can grow, and the immune system will ignore it or not do anything about it. But when you introduce like danger signals to alert the body to the presence of cancer, is when the immune system will take care of it and like be like, oh, there is a problem here. Let's deal with
Wow.
it. So
Fascinating.
yeah, so Gar wrote about how it's potentially the coffee enemas are causing the danger signals
Oh,
rather than the nutrients themselves, which are natural and good for the immune system and the body in
yeah.
general. So I
Wow,
thought that
that's fascinating. That's
yeah,
very
something that
interesting. Which,
mhm,
I mean, not to get into Coley's toxins necessarily, but I mean, it's not the same as Coley's toxins, but it's a little bit similar where it's
mhm,
you're introducing a toxin into the body to
mhm,
wake up the immune system
exactly.
to fight the cancer. And well, it ends up just getting clearing house, basically, inducing a fever,
Mhm,
which fevers are good. I think growing up, I think it's, oh, you have a flu, at least the
right,
way I grew up in my American household is it was normal, I think, for a lot of people is, oh, when you have a fever, give them Tylenol to get their fever down. And
mhm,
unless their fever is at an insane um, number where they really need it needs to be brought down, fevers are so good because not only is it killing off whatever cold or virus that you have, but it is also killing off cancer cells in your body. Because and that's where saunas even come in, where when you're heating up the sauna, and an infrared sauna is so great because it heats up from the inside out, it's killing those bad cells in the body that are causing death. And so I love the body's ability to heal. And I just can imagine that it's doing the same thing to whatever other diseases. If it, like for me, with an abnormal cell growth disease, that that's this is my Megan theory of, as I work towards healing my body, is it's doing those things to the endometriosis as well. Like we're killing off that stuff and healing, which is why I've been able to get better as I've dived into all this health nuttery that I just love so much.
it really is amazing how the body can heal and just deal with so much like trauma or toxins and all things going in that don't belong there. And
Yeah,
um yeah, like you said earlier, God created the body in amazing ways.
he did. He created us to heal. I really believe it. Our bodies are miraculous entities. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Bailey. Is there anything last that you would love to leave for our listeners as they are on their healing journeys?
Mm. um well, I guess something that I've learned recently in the last couple of years or last few years, I went through like some pretty big changes in my life, and um like another really big like mental, emotional, spiritual struggle. And I didn't you know one morning I woke up in particular thinking I'm literally not going to survive this,
Mm,
and I thought I was going to get cancer again. I was so stressed. um but yeah, I think part of that was around my belief about God, my beliefs about God and what he was like. And he's just way better. And I learned that not once, but twice.
mm,
And so God, he wants to be our friend, and, he wants to be our savior first and foremost. But also our friend, and he's very, kind and compassionate and meets us where we are. And
Mm,
there's like no reason we should ever turn away.
I
He's
love
just
that.
great. So
I love that.
God, God loves all of us so much, and
Oh,
he's great.
thank you, Bailey. I appreciate it. What a great note to end on. Ugh. Well, consider yourself hugged. And thank you to all of our listeners who are out there listening. I just hope that you got some amazing nuggets. I know that you did on the on this from this chat. And just happy healing out there, everybody.